Hi there. Friday the 10th of October is a day that I'll never forget because that was the start of a journey I never thought or expected to take. I'd woken up that morning thinking I was coming down with a cold because my throat felt scratchy and my nose was blocked. And I thought, well, it's probably flu or maybe even COVID. But I went about my usual morning routine, which involved looking after my two fur babies, Mimi and Ziva, cleaning their litter and giving them their regular morning treats. Then to clear my throat, I coughed into a tissue. And normally I wouldn't have looked at what was in the tissue, but something did make me check this time. And there it was. A small amount of phlegm, but streaked with deep red blood. I stared at it thinking, that's not good. But it was such a small amount that I convinced myself that it can't be that serious. And then I coughed again, and nothing this time. And my throat no longer felt scratchy or sore. So I threw the tissue in the bin and just carried on with my day. But later that morning, I mentioned it to my son, Stuart. And I said, I'm not really sure whether I should go to the doctor. It was such a small amount. And he said, go, but take a photo of it before you do. Take that with you. So I did. I fished the tissue out of the bin. Fortunately, I hadn't emptied the bin, and took a photo. And I was lucky enough to get an appointment with my doctor that evening, and Stuart came with me. After looking at the photo, my doctor said she wanted to run some tests purely as a precaution. She listened to my chest, checked my blood pressure, and then said she'd arrange a CT scan of my lungs, plus a PET scan of my brain, chest and stomach, just to check that, there was nothing insidious there. And everything happened so fast that I barely had time to process it. But within a few days, I had the blood test results, a CT scan, and the PET scan. But within a few days, I had the blood tests, a CT scan, and a PET scan. Back home, I was in shock. I thought there can't be anything serious. After all, I gave up smoking 30, maybe 35 years ago, and I felt perfectly well. And a few days later, the results came back of the scans, and my doctor showed me the CT scan, and there it was. A small mass on my lung, about 2.5 centimeters. Seeing it on the screen made it look real. She said it looked suspicious, possibly cancer, and then added very gently, look, Marie, if it is cancer, we need to check that it hasn't spread, and this is just a precaution. Even then, I kept thinking, how can this be happening? I don't feel ill. I've got no symptoms. And that's what still amazes me, that a tiny bit of blood in a tissue, something a lot of people might just ignore, could be a warning sign for something so serious. And then I kept thinking, the what ifs. What if I hadn't looked that day? What if I hadn't gone to the doctor? It's a sobering thought. But here I am, at the start of this unexpected journey. And now the next step is a biopsy. I'll be talking more about that and what it involved and how I managed it in my next post. So hopefully see you then. Okay, bye for now.